Hi, this is Nicholas Yock, a registered migration and education agent from Pathway to Oz. Today, I'm going to discuss something very exciting which we've been requested to make a video for, the pathway to permanent residency through aged care. Alright, so recently the Australian government announced a much easier pathway to permanent residency for applicants working in the aged care sector. This is through the 482 visa, but through a specific labour agreement stream. So the labour agreement stream typically has a lot lower requirements than other sort of standard 482 visas, and it provides a pathway to permanent residency. However, guys, don't get too excited, because to be able to go down this pathway, you still need an employer to nominate you for an occupation to be able to apply for this visa. So you can't do it independently. You still need to meet the education or work experience requirements. And your employer must have an approved labour agreement with the government or with immigration. So you can't just do it anywhere. You can only do it when you have an employer who's willing to sponsor you or nominate you, and that employer needs to already have an approved labour agreement. All right. So if you're working at an aged care centre maybe and they don't participate in this labour agreement, then you can't go down this pathway. So just be clever about that. But look, the best thing about it, I think, is that it does provide that pathway for permanent residency after 2 years. Just note though, you do need an employer to sponsor you. As you do need an employer to sponsor you, obviously, maybe I think there might be several better options out there if you're trying to look to study a course, which will give a stronger pathway for occupations that maybe don't need an employer to sponsor you, such as occupations that allow you to go through the general skilled migration pathway. Look, so some of the big changes or concessions in the labour agreement are that now quite low skilled occupations can apply for this 482 visa. So nursing support workers, personal care assistants, aged or disabled carers, these were all occupations that previously didn't have a pathway to PR, but now they do. So look at the website, you can sort of scroll down and see the different concessions in the labour agreement, or the different things that immigration made easier. So the first thing that immigration made easier is about the work experience, okay? So usually you would need to have a relevant qualification and 2 years of full-time work experience to be able to apply for a 482 visa. The government said, scrap that. With this labour agreement, you now only need to have a relevant Cert 3 qualification or higher. There's no post-qualification work experience required. If you don't hold a relevant qualification, you can just have 12 months of work experience in lieu of this. As discussed before, there's a quicker pathway to permanent residency. So applicants who obtain employer sponsorship through this labour agreement can then apply for the permanent employer sponsored 186 visa after as little as 2 years, okay? So there is a lower minimum salary requirement. So from the 1st of July, almost all employer sponsored visas will need to be paid $70,000 per annum. However, this labour agreement allows applicants to earn as little as $51,222. The next thing is labour market testing. So usually if you're going for a 482 visa, the company needs to advertise the position, demonstrate they couldn't find an Australian. This labour agreement scraps that, as long as the aged care providers have entered into a memorandum of understanding with the relevant union. So this is a little iffy, because a lot of employers I've heard might not really want to go into this, so they might not participate in the labour agreement just because of this. And once again, if your employer doesn't go into the labour agreement, doesn't have the MOU with the memorandum of understanding with the unions, there's no pathway for you. So before you start working for an employer, make sure they've got this labour agreement signed. All right, so, and then finally, the pathway to permanent residency, which is what everyone asks. All right, so you get on the 482 visa through the labour agreement stream, you work for the company for 2 years. After 2 years, you can then apply for the permanent employer sponsored 186 visa, okay? Look, it's 2 years plus however long it takes to process for that visa. So it's a little bit longer than 2 years, but there is that pathway for permanent residency. So look, I hope you found that information useful. If you're looking to, potentially study a relevant aged care course or, have questions about the migration pathway, feel free to contact Pathway to Oz. Thank you.